Some diesel injectors fail before 50,000 miles, and it's never about the fuel. A dribbling needle washes fuel down the cylinder wall, thins the oil, and on a bad day, it triggers a runaway you cannot shut off. We pulled apart the injectors mechanics keep blacklisting and found uncalibrated hardware built to look like the real part without ever being tested like one. Then we found the injectors still doing it right. Hardened valve seats, balanced solenoids, and a spray pattern that holds for 200,000 miles. This is the forensic breakdown of what separates the two. Injector failure was never really about the name stamped on the side. It's about what's inside the part and whether anyone tested it before it left the factory. A leaking needle valve doesn't just cost you power. Diesel repair bulletins trace that exact failure path from dribble to cylinder washdown, where fuel strips the oil film right off the cylinder wall. In the worst documented cases, the failure runs straight into a runaway engine that keeps going even after you cut the key. This list runs in two halves. First, 5 specific categories of bad hardware still finding their way into engine bays right now. Then, 3 tiers still holding a hardened seat and a clean spray pattern past 200,000 miles. Avoid number 1, the unbranded white box clone. The first one hiding in plain sight is the unbranded white box injector. It's sold on a general marketplace with a stock photo from a seller you can't actually trace back to a real business. These are reverse-engineered copies, built to fit the bolt pattern of a real injector without ever matching its material spec. Common rail systems run pressure high enough to cut steel, and inferior metallurgy in the nozzle tip can crack under that pressure or blow off completely mid-injection. A healthy injector throws a thin, even cone of atomized fuel when it's tested on a bench. A bad clone often throws a solid stream instead of a fine mist, and that stream burns unevenly, building carbon exactly where wear starts. Because nobody calibrated these against a factory test plan, flow rate and spray pattern vary wildly from one unit to the next, even inside the same box. Avoid number 2, the counterfeit wearing a real logo. The white box clone at least admits what it is. The second one on this list doesn't, because it's built to look exactly like the brand you already trust. These are fakes stamped with copied Bosch or Delphi markings, wrapped in packaging with the wrong logo placement, carrying a calibration code that doesn't match any real test plan on file. Look closely, and you'll often find shallow or misaligned stamping, missing security features on the box, and no test report or seller verification anywhere in the listing. What gives it away is almost never how the part looks. It's that nobody flow tested it or matched it to a calibration code the way a genuine unit gets matched before it ships. Across every source that studies this problem, the single most reliable red flag is a price sitting far below market for something sold as new and genuine. Avoid number 3, the undisclosed clean and check. Item 3 sells itself as tested, and it isn't, not really. A used injector gets pulled, wiped down, run through a quick resistance check, and relisted as reconditioned without ever going through a real remanufacturing process. Industry reliability scoring rates these units at 2 to 4 out of 10, suitable for a temporary core swap and nothing close to a long-term fix. No new nozzle goes in, no new valve goes in, and no computerized flow bench ever validates it. Whatever wear was already sitting inside that injector when it got pulled goes right back into your engine. Most of these listings carry no real warranty either, just a dead-on arrival return window, which tells you the seller doesn't expect the part to hold up any longer than that. Avoid number 4. The reman shop skipping the bench work. That same corner cutting doesn't stay confined to individual bad units. It shows up inside entire remanufacturing operations that skip the back leakage testing and cylinder-to-cylinder balance, matching that a legitimate rebuild runs as standard. Professional benches hold delivery volume within about 5% of spec and cap return flow around 25 to 45 milliliters a minute. Skipping that step sends a set of injectors back into an engine mismatched, cylinder to cylinder. Even a difference of a couple cubic millimeters per stroke between cylinders is enough to throw the idle off. That mismatch shows up as a rough idle and a surge under load. It's the exact complaint that gets misdiagnosed as a bad pump or a rail pressure problem, instead of the reman shop that never ran the balance test. Avoid number 5, the budget import set with a weak coil. The last one on this side of the list is the part most owners never think to check themselves. It's the cut rate import set, built with low-grade copper winding and inconsistent internal tolerances from unit to unit. Genuine solenoid coils hold a tight resistance window, somewhere around 2 to 8/10 of an ohm depending on the manufacturer. Drifting outside that range weakens or delays the needle's lift, and you'll feel that as a misfire or a hard start. On a bench, a healthy coil gives a sharp, audible click the instant it's energized. A coil that's drifted out of spec often gives you a weak buzz instead, or nothing at all. Owners who've run these budget sets describe the experience as a total gamble. Open the box and one injector tests fine while the other 3 land out of spec, because nothing about the quality control was consistent set to set. What actually holds up? The OEM tier. Every failure above traces back to the same root cause. No calibration, no hardened material spec, and nobody accountable for either one. The injectors still holding up past 200,000 miles share the opposite standard. Needle and seat surfaces are hardened into roughly the 400 to 650 Vickers hardness range, individually flow tested and matched to a factory calibration code before they're ever allowed to ship. That flow test holds delivery volume within about 5% of spec, the same tolerance a proper reman shop is supposed to hit and so often doesn't. That standard is what separates a fuel system that lasts from one that quietly takes the engine down with it. Deliver number 1, Bosch. Bosch is the name workshops keep coming back to as the benchmark for common rail manufacturing tolerance. Tight tolerances plus deep validation testing translate directly into a needle and seat that keeps sealing correctly, injection after injection, well past the point where a cheaper unit would already be dribbling. Fleets and workshops report strong field reliability specifically on common rail systems, and that reliability holds across both new and properly remanufactured Bosch units. Those injectors ship as original equipment on diesel platforms across Europe and around the world, which is exactly why the name gets copied so often in the first place. Bosch solenoid coils are built to a tight published resistance window, roughly 2 to 5/10 of an ohm, the same calibrated standard running through everything else on this list. Deliver number 2, Denso. Denso earned its spot the same way, as a global leader in fuel injection with heavy use across major diesel platforms. It has a track record of strong long-term field performance in light and medium-duty applications. It's the original equipment supplier behind a huge share of Toyota and Isuzu diesel trucks, and it built that reputation on being dependable rather than flashy. Its solenoid coils hold a published resistance window around 3 to 8/10 of an ohm, tight enough that a unit drifting outside it gets flagged before it ever reaches an engine. That consistency is what durability actually looks like on a spec sheet instead of a sales page. Deliver number 3, Delphi. Delphi closes out the list as an OEM and commercial vehicle supplier known for tying its hydraulics tightly into the vehicle's control system instead of treating them as separate problems. It supplies both passenger diesel platforms and heavy commercial fleets, which means its parts get validated across a wider range of duty cycles than a passenger-only supplier ever sees. That reliability is backed by extensive lab and field validation, not marketing copy, and its solenoid coils hold to a published window around 4/10 to a full ohm. Run the pattern across all 3 names, and it's the same story every time. Hardened material, real calibration, and testing that actually happened before the part left the building. The difference was never the name on the injector. It was whether anyone tested what's actually inside it before it went in a box. A hardened seat, a matched calibration code, and a real flow bench cost more up front, and that cost is exactly why the shortcuts exist. Check what's really installed in your engine before you trust the label on the outside. And if this saved you from buying blind, subscribe for the next forensic teardown.